All right, so what is the top skill that every network marketer must have? Is it closing, overcoming objections, doing Facebook, being the social media king or queen, presenting your business? What is it? What's the top skill? And I'd be curious to hear from you what you think, but here's the deal. In my mind, there's one thing that to me is the number one skill that, now we have to have all of these skills. We've got to be able to present, invite, address objections and questions, be able to enroll people, be able to assist and mentor and all of those things. Those are all skills that we want to have. But the one thing that every single network marketer, if they're going to succeed long term, that they require is the ability to communicate with clarity. Your ability to engage somebody in conversation, however that conversation is taking place, whether it's in person, on the phone, through a messenger chat, through a text conversation, and be able to communicate with clarity and be able to, and I think honestly, the way you become strong, the way you become a strong communicator is by having someone in your presence or having someone that you're actually communicating back and forth with. I'm not saying that right in front of you, although if you spend time engaging people in conversation where we're sitting down having a chat and we're communicating, we're conversing with one another, that forces you to be able to handle yourself in a way that's different than a text conversation, for example, or a Facebook Messenger conversation, because there are elements in text messaging and Facebook messaging that are not existent when you are communicating face-to-face or even being on the phone with somebody, for example. And I'm not saying we go back to let's just do all belly to belly. That's not what I'm talking about. I do see a lot of people who in today's marketplace hiding behind a computer screen or hiding behind their phone screen. And I don't think that it flexes that communication muscle as much as it would if you were communicating with an individual one-to-one, one-on-one, for example. And the important thing is, like, for example, there are different parts of communication that come into play. It's not just the words that we use. It's the tonality of those words, the volume, the way we express a word, for example. Like, I'll give you a really quick example. This goes way back to Seinfeld days. Like, I remember Elaine used to, like, look at Kramer or whatever, and she would say, "Shut up," and she would just blast him in his chest, and he'd go flying across the room. "Shut up." Well, was she really saying shut up, like shut your mouth? Or was she saying, "No way, get out of here, you got to be kidding me"? And so while the word said shut up, what she really meant was, "No way, get out of here, you're crazy," or whatever. And so the tone of voice, like, the other thing is like body language. Like when I was studying NLP years ago, I don't remember the exact percentage, but communication is really only about 7% the words that we use, and the remainder of it is, our body language, gestures, tone. There's all sorts of other things that come into play in engaging with another human being. And the fact that we're, in a business that's based on people moving a product or service through a network of other people, that then would tell me that it should require some level of people skills. And people skills is our ability to relate, our ability to communicate, our ability to listen and actually hear what people are saying, and to understand, to comprehend what they're saying, and be able to empathize, sympathize, relate, be able to respond in a way that Like for example, I mean, how many times have you gotten a text message or an email from somebody or a Facebook message and they said something, but you took it the wrong way? Because, like, for example, specifically in text and Facebook Messenger conversations, as an example, you can't bold, italicize, or underline like you would in written language. So if I wanted to express myself in written language to somebody, if I were to bold something that, puts more focus on that word, or underline it, or italicize it, puts more focus, or ... pause, it puts a pause in there. Those things, you can't do that on a Facebook message or a text message where you can't bold, underline, italicize. So sometimes you may say something and somebody takes it totally the wrong way. We've all had that happen, right? Where you send somebody something and they're like, What are you talking about? Like, I didn't mean it that way. I said this, but you didn't feel the expression of how I said what I said. So when we're, communicating with people to engage them, to either show them our product or our opportunity, to ask questions, to work with our team members, you have to develop that muscle. And I think personally that the muscle of communication is really only fully developed when we put ourselves in a position to communicate and interact and engage, right? And again, I'm not saying we go back to, Todd, you just need to go sit down and go one-to-one with people all the time. That's not what I'm saying. But I do think that if you're simply hiding behind a computer screen your whole life, you're not developing those muscles, those communication muscles, where someone like myself that spends a lot of time engaging with people in a personal environment, engaging with people on the phone, engaging with people online, through whatever aspects that we can communicate. Like, this is a one-way communication here. Me talking to you is a one-way communication. So you're like, it's essentially lecture mode or teaching mode in this case, right? So, but to me, when we look at what network marketing is, what is network marketing? Network marketing, regardless of what tools and technology that we have available to us, is a communication business. It's a people business. And the way that we're able to grow a business is to effectively be able to engage and communicate and understand the people that we're communicating with. And I'm not saying that you can't or you should stop, what you're doing on Facebook or text messaging or whatever it is. But I do think that you should spend some of your time flexing that communication muscle and giving yourself the opportunity to be, one-to-one. Like if I were to sit down and have a conversation with you, like the other day I had my niece was in town and we sat down after a dinner and she and I were communicating just back and forth for like 3 hours, sitting on my couch and just talking about stuff. And it was a great conversation. If that was a text message back and forth, there's no eye contact, no body language, no me being able to read signs. Like if I said something and she went, whoa, what are you talking about? Like I can't see that if I'm messaging you back and forth. And again, you need to be able to communicate with clarity in everything that you do, whether it's your email, you're sending an email out to your team, you're sending somebody a text message, you're engaging somebody in a Facebook Messenger chat, you are, however you're doing it, right? So, but there are missing elements if all of your time is spent behind a computer screen going like this, typing away or going like this on your phone. You're not flexing that communication muscle, right? And if you don't use it, you lose it, right? So if you're never putting yourself into that kind of a situation, now honestly, I'm a little concerned that network marketers in today's day and age, because of the technology that we have available, it can be easy to lean on, hiding behind your phone screen or hiding behind your computer screen, and it doesn't force you where it did back in the day, where I had to be able to sit down with you and, eyeball to eyeball, have a conversation with you and have a chat. And I feel very comfortable having a conversation one-to-one or one-to-several or one-to-many, because I have put myself in the position to flex that communication muscle. It now allows you to more deeply understand what somebody is saying. because you can hear the tone of their voice. You can see their body language. Like, for example, you're having a chat with somebody and you say something and they lean forward like, oh my gosh, you just said something, and it caused them to lean forward. Well, if you were sitting with them, you would be able to pick up on that. If they went, and they rolled their eyes, well, what does that mean? You don't see somebody rolling their eyes when you're sending a text message or a Facebook message, right? Now, I know we can do voice message on Facebook Messenger, for example, which puts some tonality in there, which is powerful. But this ability to be able to handle ourselves in social situations is paramount to your success long term as a network marketer. Because let's say you're spending all your time. Can you imagine? Like, think about this. You're spending. I use a kind of a weird example, like somebody who is like a computer coder, and they are, straight up like, I'm just like, they're coding out a website and they like to be in the back room, and they've actually probably chosen that occupation because they don't like to socialize. They don't like to engage with people. And I don't know how you can be involved in network marketing and not be able to socialize, not be able to engage, not be able to sit down with your team at your national conference and be at a dinner and say, look guys, it's so great to have you guys here, and be able to communicate in that kind of environment. And if you're not flexing that muscle, and then you spend all your time behind your computer screen, and then you're faced with this opportunity to be in front of this group, and you're like totally nervous and your palms are sweating and you're freaking out and you're panicking. Oh my gosh, how am I going to, this feels so awkward, this feels so weird. Well, it feels weird and awkward because you're spending all your time behind your computer screen and you're not flexing that muscle. The two-way muscle. Like doing a Facebook Live is one thing, and that's certainly a way to communicate a message. I can engage with you to some extent on a Facebook Live through comments, but like Zoom, for example. Zoom is a two-way communication device. Like, whether it's me one-to-one or one-to many or one to hundreds, there are people that I can see, and we can like I run my A teams through Zoom. So we're on a Zoom. I'm talking. I can see everybody's faces. I can interact. I can see body language. I can hear tone of voice. If I was unclear as to what somebody said, I can have them repeat it. Say, look, based on what you said, this is what I heard. Is that what you meant? No, this is what I meant. And even if you're doing it on Facebook Messenger, you can still probably pick that up. So just our ability to go back and forth with somebody and do so comfortably is to me is the most vital skill that we would have in network marketing. Because then if I have really good, solid communication skills, my ability to engage or interact with another human being or multiple human beings at the same time in a physical environment, either we're physically together or maybe it's through Zoom, then if I'm giving a presentation, the likelihood of me being able to clearly communicate that message is going to be increased because I flex that muscle. If I'm doing a Facebook Live, and because I've really put myself in interaction engagement mode, like literally using the mouth, not the keyboard, then I've flexed that communication muscle. And if you're never saying it, if you're like typing and never talking, then you're not flexing that communication muscle. You're not utilizing all that is available to us in terms of being able to really communicate with another person with absolute clarity. And we got to use these things too. We got to use our ears, and we got to be able to hear what people are saying. And what's crazy to me as well is, way back in the day before cell phones existed, if I was sitting down with you, you didn't have something in your hand or in your purse or on the desk or in front of you on the table. We didn't have to deal with that. We had to deal with maybe the distraction of somebody seeing somebody walk by in the restaurant and they were distracted by that. But we get so pulled into the distraction of these devices that we have, which are great, by the way. But how many times have you seen somebody, think about this. I mean, this happened just the other night, and it happens it's never ending. Like, I was out to dinner with a group of people, and I looked over and there was 3 people sitting at a table out to dinner with one another, and they never looked at one another. They were just on their devices. And to me, I don't know how you are, but if I'm out if I'm out with a friend, and my friend, in fact, I remember one time I won't mention his name, but like literally I was sitting, we hadn't seen each other that frequently, and we got together to have a drink and have something to eat. And we sat down, and like the first 15 minutes, he was like on his phone. And we're like sitting next to each other, supposedly connecting and spending some personal time together. Yet he's just, doing whatever he's doing on his phone. I finally said, brother, man, listen, can you do me a favor and just put the phone down so we can connect? I mean, you're like, if you got other things to do, we can meet at another time, but I didn't come down here to sit and watch you look at your phone. I mean, I understand if you got to send a quick, hey, excuse me for a second, I got to send something out. That's fine. The convenience of having that thing in your hand is great. But again, it comes down to if you don't flex the muscle, you don't develop that capacity to really clearly communicate and understand human beings, understand human behavior, understand what's going on with somebody. If you can see somebody's expression and go, what's troubling you, right? Like if we're texting back and forth, I can't see what's going on with you. You might have like some weird look on your face, and we're texting back and forth, and I'm wondering like what's going on with you, but I can't read it because it's just through text message. And again, I'm not saying abandon text messaging or abandon Facebook Messenger or any of these things. These are all great tools that we can use. But I think at least some of your time needs to be invested in putting yourself in a position where you have to engage with people. Like you could do things like networking groups, and I'm talking physical, like actually seeing people, like having some of your time where you're not just hidden behind the computer all the time, where I'm like, okay, I'm going to go flex my muscle. Just like going to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym and I'm going to work out. If I never work out, I never build that muscle, right? Well, if I never put myself in a position where I'm around people, I'm never developing the muscle of social skills. And we're in a social business. At some point, you're going to need to be in front of a group of people around your team, and maybe you're doing a lot of your work on Facebook. That's totally cool. That's great. And if it works for you, that's awesome. Or Instagram or whatever social media thing that it is that you might be using, or a combination of all of those things. But the important thing you got to understand is give yourself the chance to flex the muscle. You might get involved in some meetup groups. Maybe you start a meetup group. I mean, I think that would be a great thing for you to do. Maybe you get involved in some speaker group or something, and Toastmasters or something, and give yourself an opportunity to be able to speak in front of an audience, which many people that get involved in network marketing, most people that are involved in network marketing are scared to death to get on stage. I certainly was the first time that I spoke, or get in front of a camera, for example. How could you get good at speaking to a camera like I am right now? If you're on podcast, you're seeing me on podcast, but how could I get good at speaking on camera if I never got myself on camera? I remember I was really good at communicating, and then on the phone and in person. And then I went to Destin, Florida years ago to produce this training series for this company, and I'd never really been on camera. This is like way pre mobile phone and social media. And I remember staring at the camera, and the light went on, and I was just like, this big red light flashing in my face, and it was like all of a sudden I was not the same person that I was when I was just having a chat with somebody. And the way I got good at that was by flexing that muscle. So by being on camera repeatedly over and over again, it's something you get comfortable with because you're flexing the muscle. If you want to get good at speaking on stage, get on stage, speak in front of an audience. The more you speak on stage, the more comfortable you are because you're flexing that muscle. And again, it's a social business. It's not a computer-driven business. Yeah, we use computers and tech and all that stuff to grow our business, but your product is being moved through human beings, right? Maybe they're getting them in front of a website to go take a look at a presentation. That's fine, but it's the connection that we have which would cause you to go look at the information. I'm going to wrap it up with this. Don't spend all of your time hidden behind a computer screen or your phone screen. If you want to thrive, survive, win in this business long term, because you will ultimately be faced with a situation one day where if you hadn't flexed that muscle, and now you're like put into a position and it's going to feel awkward, it's going to feel uncomfortable for you. Like going back to what I didn't finish saying is like these computer coder guys, like I got a friend of mine who's like he just grinds, like listening to music and just, but he doesn't put himself in a social situation very often. So when he's in a social situation, it's very socially awkward for him because he never puts himself in that position. So I don't know where you are, what your situation is. If you're spending all your time behind your computer screen, or you're giving yourself a chance to flex that communication muscle. But again, in my opinion, this is the number one skill that you must possess as a network marketer, being able to engage with people in a conversation. Again, I'll just reiterate my point. I'm not saying, go back to belly. That's the only thing that we do, but give yourself a chance to grow your skills in that arena. And the only way that you can do that is by putting yourself in the position where you're forced to do it. So, because then again, when somebody calls you up and says, hey, we'd like for you to speak on our national conference stage, you're like, oh my gosh, I've never spoken on a platform. I'm in a panic attack. Or, you're asked to, hey, or you're put in a situation where you're got to do a little team training for your group, but you've never put yourself in a real social environment, social situation. And even in a small group environment with 10, 12 people, your top 10 or 12 leaders, because you've done only engagement and interaction online, you're going to be in an uncomfortable position. So you can't get good at something that you never do. And yeah, is text messaging communicating? Yes. Is Facebook Messenger chat communicating? Yes, it is. Is being on a Facebook Live or recording a video some level of communication? Yes. But we want to have you do is be able to interact, engage, listen, hear, understand, comprehend, and be able to effectively work with other human beings. That's the bottom line. So I don't know where you're catching me today. Maybe you're on my podcast, which is great. If you're on YouTube, that's great too. There are some other resources on my page. If you go to toddfalcone.com/episode 61, you can find all the details from this episode, other trainings that are available to you, some free downloads that I think might help you become a better network marketer. So love to hear from you. Feel free to comment on this. And obviously, if you're on podcast, you can't. But if you hop over to toddfalcone.com/episode 61, you can join the conversation. I'll see you guys on another episode. Hope you're having an amazing day.